cooperation agreements signed between the Board of Investment and 16 sister IPOs on the mainland, and with many other initiatives driven by government and the Prime Minister himself. Without these framework agreements, the facilitating business environment in Mauritius and the facilitating role of the Mauritian economic diplomacy, Mauritius would not have achieved the attractiveness it has today as a platform. Mauritius has a long tradition of partnership between private business operators and government. This may be one of the secrets of the Mauritian miracle, where government gets intelligence from state-to-state relations and the corridors of diplomacy. Private sector gets a different intelligence from board meetings, from business negotiations, and from field operations. The combination of these two angles of intelligence is what gives a nation greater strength in its outward strategies. The Mauritius Africa Business Club is set to open another space of dialogue between public and private sector, focused on the Mauritius Africa strategy. We all want to see that there is more intense, deeper economic and business relations between the mainland and Mauritius. That Mauritius becomes even more attractive to more business operators to use us as a platform for investing on the mainland. That more of our brother entrepreneurs like Shinga and Kasa here feel at home in Mauritius. That there are more African students studying here, more tourists from the mainland. Ladies and gentlemen, the club is akin to other existing private sector organizations, except for two aspects. The first is that it is focused entirely on the Africa agenda. The second is that it will be more international in its membership, inasmuch as the Africa strategy does not belong to Mauritius only, but to all those who are already or are seeking to operate from Mauritius to achieve their business objectives. The club will actively pursue collaboration with all institutions and all other stakeholders engaged in promoting the Mauritius Africa strategy. The Mauritius Africa Business Club has been promoted by 5 persons whose credentials are known to the Mauritius business community. They are Ramasitanen, Afsai Wine, Cedric Despéril, Aisha Moussaïd, and myself. We are promoters of the Mauritius Africa Business Club in our own individual capacity, not in the different official capacity that we may hold or representing our companies. We have set as objectives for the club to bring together all those who have a business interest in Africa, to promote the sharing of experience, information, and networking between its members, to be a platform of interaction with foreign business persons coming to Mauritius in order to promote investment onto the mainland, to be a platform for advocacy for a more effective Mauritius Africa strategy, and to promote knowledge and understanding of Africa. And on this last point, I was particularly interested to note that in an interview with Ramasitanen, one journalist just put the question, would you advise investment in Zimbabwe? I can understand the mindset behind that question. I can also understand the lack of information and denial. And on the same day, I was reading in another newspaper the information coming out from the Zimbabwe Investment Authority to the effect that Mauritius is now the #1 investor in Zimbabwe. And I'm proud about that. That by itself speaks and will speak a lot, because it will say to the government of Zimbabwe that the double taxation avoidance agreement that they have signed with Mauritius, the IPPA that Zimbabwe has signed with Mauritius, is indeed bringing benefits, like benefits was reached by India. It will also tell other African countries that the DPAs and the IPPAs that we are signing with them is not just a piece of paper. There is material benefits to be derived from these agreements. The Mauritius Africa Business Club has been set up as a non-profit trust. Its registered office, for your information, is at the IFS Court, and for the time being, its operational office is at Strat Consult on Joanna Street in Port. Membership will be on invitation, and there will be, I have to say that, it's important that you know it, membership will obviously involve a membership fee, an annual membership fee of $500 US, which we will have to revise in due course. But the benefits of the club will not just be exclusively for its members. We will invite every now and then non-members to the club's events. The club will essentially organize a number of activities, bi-monthly meetings. Such meetings will include presentation of live business experience of those who are doing it, presentation of information and data of business interest, and opportunities to meet with foreign business persons. We will obviously hold occasional master conferences from invited overseas very high-profile persons. The club will, as a first priority, set up the Africa Business Intelligence Database for the benefit of its members. Information from a land where some of the information come out in the open, but much of the information must be dug out. Information is key to be on a first mover basis. We already have developed over the last 6 months our contribution in the form of a paper on the Mauritius Africa strategy, wherein we raise some strategic issues and make some proposals which we shall share with the government. The club will also be a vehicle to link up with other similar initiatives elsewhere, such as the Harvard Africa Business Club, or the INSEAD Africa Business Club, or still the Singapore Africa Business Club. The club is committed to the promotion of high-quality business opportunities in Africa, to be a real enabler for encouraging contacts and developing business ventures between economic actors from the mainland, from Mauritius, and from Asia. The format and content of this launch event this afternoon is setting the tone. We have decided for this event to put a premium on substance. We have just invited 2 guests. One from Zimbabwe, Tashinga Mutasa, who is a business person operating on the Southern African region, and one from India, Dr. Siddhartha Roy, who is an economic advisor to the Tata Group. 2 persons with living business experience, whose companies are already using Mauritius as a platform and who are already involved on the mainland to share their views with us. So ladies and gentlemen, I'm sure you will benefit from this launch event itself and look forward to welcoming you in our midst. I once again have the pleasure to welcome all of you to this launching event. Thank you.
For me, I found it fascinating that men and women are thinking about the future of their country and the role that their country should be playing in the evolution of a continent. If you don't mind, I'm sure all of you might share some of the sentiments that I'm going to give. But I think it's important that we start from a common platform. When I see Africa and I envision the next generation, the next 20, 30 years of Africa, in my mind I'm 100% clear that there is no other continent that is going to grow as fast as our continent. None. And I think it's very important we begin to look at the future of our continent in that perspective, because that allows us to make very informed and calculated decisions about where we are going. There are countries that have catapulted way beyond others on our continent, and Mauritius is one of them. The first time I came to Mauritius was, I think, 1981. The transformation in this country in those 30 years is unbelievable. I think we have to start saying to ourselves, what are we going to do in the next 30 years? And being given the platform to talk to you, the drivers of Mauritius, is a privilege not only to myself, but actually to Zimbabwe. Because at the end, the relationship between our two countries will be a pivotal relationship to the future of our sub-region. When I think about Mauritius, first of all, apart from it being a great resort that my children like to come to frequently, I see that Mauritius is apart from the continent. In being apart from the continent, the strategy that Mauritius has to employ has to be slightly different from other countries. We have seen from time to time Mauritian companies coming into Mozambique, Tanzania, Kenya, Ethiopia, Zimbabwe. But I think Mauritius has not yet begun to really exploit its comparative advantage. And I'm hoping during the course of this conversation that I'll touch a few of you to appreciate that potential. When I see the groupings that form Africa, there are two that for me are particularly exciting. One is COMESA and the other one is SADC. I believe Mauritius is involved in both. More importantly for me, being of an advanced age, SADC is probably more intimate to me than COMESA. Because I believe that the way we are structured in Zimbabwe, we're at the heart of SADC. So as a region, we're looking at 250, 300 million people. We're at the heart of that. When I see the mineral growth that is taking place in the mining space, be it in Mozambique, in Zimbabwe, in Zambia, the DRC, we get very excited. We believe that the opportunity to offer goods and services to that explosion is very significant. Again, I think Mauritius is so well structured to participate fully in that evolution. I want to touch on a few core issues around Zimbabwe, which I think are important. You may know them, you may hear them, but I think they're critical for you to begin to review your views around Zimbabwe. I've been in business since the early 80s, and I've traveled, fortunately, throughout the continent. I've gone through periods in Uganda in the early 80s, late 80s, when it was transforming from being a country that was driven by crew upon crew into Tanzania, when the situation in Tanzania was so dire. It's actually the first time where I realized that there is never a currency exchange rate where you cannot exchange with the US dollar. At the time, I remember going to Tanzania, and it was something like 1 million shillings to the dollar, and I couldn't believe that people would transact in those numbers. Then I remember friends of mine in Ghana, when their exchange rate moved from something like 10 cedis to the dollar to 2,000 to the dollar. And I still remember calling my friend David saying, how crazy can your politicians be? Zimbabwe had gone through horrors, numbers which are unbelievable to talk about. But that for us has been a lesson. It's been a very critical lesson, which I believe as a society has begun to be embedded. One of the talks that we keep on getting asked about is, what is going to happen to the currency of Zimbabwe? As all of you know, we're a US dollar economy. My belief is that we will never go back to a situation where we will have one currency. Zimbabweans will not allow themselves the possibility of being given no choice. So it is a US dollar economy. Yes, somewhere down the road you will get a Zimbabwe currency. But at best, it will be part of the basket of multi-currencies. That in itself is an advantage. And I think when we look at Zimbabwe, we begin to see that the pain we've gone through is creating opportunity unto itself. Another issue around Zimbabwe is that of our founding father generation, who are still in leadership. What I've learned is that most of us, we interpret the immediacy and we interpret it as that reality. I have seen African countries transform from the founding father generation to the next generation and thereafter. We in Zimbabwe are at the end of our founding father generation. That end, whether it happens next year, this year, the year after, is happening. The next generation of political leadership is different. Circumstances are going to force them to be different. Their focus is going to be economic, not the correction, rightly or wrongly, of historical wrongs. Their focus is on how are we going to make Zimbabwe relevant to the future of that continent. The point I made earlier about Zimbabwe, about Africa being the fastest growing continent over the next generation, I forgot to mention that I actually believe that Zimbabwe is going to be one of the top 3 countries in terms of growth on that continent over that period?
My senior colleagues, Mr. Shyama Gupta, was associated with the Africa endeavor of the group for many, many years, maybe more than 4 decades, told me, go to Mauritius. That's the hub of strategic thinking. Don't go there because it's a financial hub. Well, and every time I look at the history of Mauritius, but particularly its economic history being an economist, that's something close to one's heart. One finds that at one point of time, Mauritius was dependent on sugar. Subsequently, it got consolidated, and that industry has survived. Then it was into textiles. It decided to get into the right part of the textile chain. It also diversified its business outside. If I'm not mistaken, Mauritius also acts along with Bangladesh at this point of time. As far as Bangladesh, apart from African countries, to take advantage of it. It became a financial hub, which all of us know about. Then it moved into ICT, and now it has developed, or at least the vision, we can see the early shoots, the green shoots, that with Africa it will develop a very strong relationship which possibly can be utilized by other countries and African countries themselves to grow in a synergistic manner. Now with that, I take you to my presentation. If you look at the real GDP growth, it's the developing Asia and Africa where really the hope lies. It's nothing unknown. All of us know about it. The catalytic role which Mauritius can play in this context, both in the flow of finances as well as in providing becoming an organizational conduit. I'm not just talking of financial conduit, is something which we need to explore. What we have this is all well known to you, but possibly I am repeating it, that we have seen it as a strategic location. It's business friendly. It has been an international financial center. Now, if you look at the global reach, it has got, if I am not mistaken, 14 DTS. The latest one was signed with Nigeria. And 2 are under ratification or things like that, and lot of investment arrangements, bilateral investment arrangements with Africa. Of course, it has got the tax benefits in terms of corporate and income tax, the capital gains benefits, and all the benefits that foreign ownership possibly would be looking forward to. Now, what we read from the budget of 2012, I am told that the 2013 budget is almost on the anvil. Maybe sometime in November it's going to be presented. They are talking of the widening network of PTA and IPPA, the transformation of the new airport, which will possibly allow Mauritius to attract more investor crowd, and developing a relationship with African and other countries, including roving ambassadors. Now, there has been a lot of, now we come to the hard facts. This is all about the good things. Now, when we come to the hard facts, you look at the comparison between Mauritius and Singapore, because the in the financial world is can sort of Singapore become an alternative to Mauritius, particularly for countries like India. We have an arrangement called SICA. with Singapore. Now, there is not really much of a difference if you really look at. The difference is a more in the perception of Mauritius within what I should say, the taxation authority. So that is a perception which possibly needs to be changed. If you really look at the transparency requirement, what can be the difference? Maybe in the area of motive and substance. Now this motive and substance is becoming again these two areas. There have been some changes in Mauritius of late, and particularly in KYC and other areas. So the difference is at the moment is not all that great, and over a period of time it will possibly become almost nearly same. The other thing which is important for some of the investors to recognize that we can become the logistics hub for Africa because of the better connectivity and provide better connectivity to business. It can provide a capital market, as sir was mentioning, for the African continent. It can provide commodities exchange in case a commodities exchange comes up here. And of course, it's a significant amount of private equity will continue to get channelized to this place. From a tax efficiency point of view, it's the best place to have a Cayman Island and Mauritius sort of linkage for private equity. Now, if you look at an outside, I'm talking outside of the structural development part, which I was mentioning, from sugar to textiles to services to ITC, and now it has got this Africa platform, which is again going to be an area which possibly will add to Mauritius as the GDP in a significant manner in future. It is a flexible dynamic economy and it's forward-looking. So far as the overall economy is concerned, it's all well known. What we see is that as an economy will continue to grow at 5%. So we are talking about maybe at this point of time it could be marginally less or more, but that's all cyclical. This is what the IMF view is. And it has an investment rate of 25.5%. The only area possibly where Mauritius has an issue is the current account deficit. If I am not mistaken, the current account deficit is about 8.8% of GDP. So obviously it will need funds from outside. This is the same story for India. And why I am mentioning the Indian story at this point of time? Because that's one thing we all must recognize while all the discussion about tax agreement with India has been going on. India has a GDP of about $1.7 trillion. And the current account deficit was last year about 4.2% of GDP. This year it may come down to anything between 3.9 to say 3.6 to 3.9%. So the deficit is quite substantial. Now, if this is substantial, you will, in order to maintain a certain stability in the foreign exchange rate, you will need money from outside, both in terms of FDI and FII. And in that context, if you look at the FDI, 38%, between 2000 and 2012, 38% of all FDI came from Mauritius, or it was routed through Mauritius. And if you take the FII, or which is the foreign financial institutions which are operating in the capital market, more than 50% of the money was routed through Mauritius. So Mauritius plays a very important role in the financial life of a country like India. Now,
my intervention is about injecting more traction in Mauritius Africa Economic Partnership, scale, scope, and depth. And essentially, this is what I'm going to take you through for the next 15 to 18 minutes. Where the opportunities are, I think we already have a flavor from this, from the speeches and the presentation of the three speakers before me. How Mauritius can benefit from these opportunities. Our achievement today, as well enumerated by Amélie in his opening remark, thanks obviously to the effort of government and also the initiative of the private sector. And then something which is slightly tricky, trying to respond to what our friend from Zimbabwe said, that Mauritius is not capturing the opportunities that are lying there, and that we need to develop a strategic vision, and we need to have strategic partnership. I don't pretend, there's the Africa Business Club to have the older solution, but very often people tell you, if you know the question, this is probably 50% of the answer. And I will venture into quelques pistes de réflexion on how we can have scale, scope, and depth. Now, the opportunities, I think most of you who are present here know about them, and I'll try to summarize them in what I call 6 mega trends that is going to drive opportunities. I mean, for a long time, many people believe that Africa was only a commodity story, a natural resource story. And in fact, if you look at what has been happening in many African countries, it's been driven to a large extent by basically consumption. And again, we all know the story behind this. It's young, rising, affluent, urban population. Africa, in fact, is the fastest urbanizing continent. Admittedly starting from a low base, but it's rising very fast. The young population is being urbanized very fast, and there are lots of opportunities basically for many companies in Mauritius, and also companies across the world. The second one, again, has been highlighted by Dr. Rowe. This is what most economists call bridging the infrastructure gap. The opportunities, many of them, probably not direct investment from Mauritius itself, but here there's a huge role that can be played by the global business sector in terms of structuring infrastructure investment into Africa. And as was mentioned by Dr. Roy just now, is it possible to use the stock exchange of Mauritius to raise some fund or to leverage some fund from Mauritius to invest in infrastructure? Third is agriculture and agribusiness. I mean, as some people say, Africa has not had its green revolution yet. And again, here we know what is the compelling story, that the potential to become the world's next breadbasket. Most of the global food production increase will have to come from Africa. Very simple reason. This is where the arable land is, and this is where the resources are. Then there is, which is extremely important, regional trade and cross-border investment. There are huge opportunities that can be unlocked through regional integration, economic trade, and also in cross-border investment and other areas of economic cooperation. And I think Amélie mentioned in his opening speech that in the future we are looking at one large FTA that is going to include COMESA, SADC, and also the East African communities. So there will be significant opportunities there, not only in terms of the timing at which that will happen, but also in terms of the depth of integration that will take place in our region. And last but not least, again this is extremely important, is what some economists are calling financial and technological inclusion. And especially, the connect between the explosion of financial services in Africa and the use of IT platform. In fact, this is leapfrogging because in many cases they don't have physical banking facilities, and this is being deployed, on IT platform. So I think these are, I'm not going into the details. I think one of the challenges that we face is how do we identify opportunities, not only in each of the regions and each of the country, but also in each of the sectors and probably in each of the subsectors. The second one is how can we benefit from these opportunities? Again, quite straightforward. If you are in SME, and the market is very small, as stated by Amélie, this is broadening, obviously, your market space. So trade in goods is happening, and we know basically that the share of trade with Africa in the total trade has increased. Now, admittedly, it's essentially to South Africa, but one of the challenges is basically how do we broaden this trade expansion in other countries in Africa. The second can be trading services. There are many providers of services in Mauritius that obviously are seizing opportunities in services in Africa. And then of course there's tourism. I think about 10% of our tourism inflow is from Africa. Again, with a significant dependence on South Africa. Again, the strategy here, as has been stated, by Zimbabwe, is how we broaden, this market. Next one is regional integration opportunities, and we touched upon it. I think this is probably one of the most important opportunities that will be unlocked. Once barriers are down, whether they're trade barriers, or they are customs barriers, or non-tariff barriers, I think there's going to be lots of opportunities for our companies. Sourcing of raw materials, we mentioned by Dr. Roy, this is happening on a small scale, but I think there are two areas where in the medium to long term we can work with Africa is basically in terms of food security and in terms of energy security. And that will help us also knowing fully well that Mauritius is a net importer of food and Mauritius also is a net importer of energy. And we know that in 2007 and 2008 we went through these two crises at the same time, both a food crisis and also an energy crisis.
Especially when we have to speak of such luminaries. And when the child is yet to become the father of man, means that there's not much for me to say. But I've been asked to share with you some experiences in the light of encounters, have a brief. They have been with heads of states, ministers of foreign affairs, or ministers responsible for regional integration. Let me, like all of you have done, congratulate our friends. And I'm glad to be asked to launch the Mauritius Africa Business Club. I commend the promoters, because I'll call this club an opportunity not club. It creates the living environment to have good interaction, exchange of information, analysis of information, and at the same time, it's a club that will widen the circle of opportunities for startup, entrepreneur, seasoned entrepreneur, or team to share their experiences with those budding ones. Let me also say that Africa is dawning upon all of us. And I read an article which appeared in the International Herald. And the basic question was asked, where is growth going to come from? And to many people, Africa is the pole of growth that probably will sustain the growth of the world economy. But then we have no choice, notwithstanding consolidating existing markets. We have to turn our gaze towards Africa, the great hinterland with so many promises. But at the same time, we need to be practical, pragmatic and realistic. And we have to take on board one major fact, that humility has to be the soul of it. And I say it because we have to be equal partners. And when benefits have to accrue or going to accrue, we should not spoil the broth, as we say, and we have to make sure that the benefits accruing are going to be shared mutually. And if to a large extent, Mauritius has earned the respect that it deserves, not because we are small, but to a large extent because of mutual respect, humility, and the way we address issues. We are not the new colonizers. And we have seen what has been the outcome of those who have moved in a big way, thinking that the winner has to pay for. We have seen what has been the outcome of elections in Zambia. And to a large extent, the party which was in power lost power because they were too forthcoming towards our Chinese friends. That's why it is of vital importance that when we move in as genuine partners. Because some of our friends on the African continent sometimes react with the gloves, and you cannot blame them. And I recall attending the summit, the SADC summit. And it is true that Africa is a continent with 54 countries, different ethnic groups, different cultures. And before you move in, you have to make sure that you have assessed the merits of the country, that you know the people, and you have also to make sure that you address issues where the gains can be shared not only by a few people, but by the community at large. And this is very important. We are talking of an Africa where there is political governance and where there is economic governance. We are talking of an Africa which is being peer reviewed. We are talking of an Africa which is keen to embrace the best practices. So we have to look up and we have to walk as tall as our African friends. This is not an Africa that made a false start. There is a new dawn. And this is an Africa which is on the move. And if you refer to the findings of the report submitted by Mackenzie, the lion is roaring. And will continue to roar. It is no coincidence that Africa, that passes with the land, is still a virgin land. And if Africa has become a beacon of hope to address the issue of food security, renewable energy, it is because of the tremendous potential. Therefore, we should have clear-cut strategy. my good friend, former Minister of Finance and Vice Prime Minister, talk of broad-based and niche approach. And we can do both. One does not exclude the other.